Go home then.
It just become the promise of what's to come, and I'ma remain a soldier till the war is won.
Yeah.
I had a dream that one day, and you niggas keep fucking it up as I roll over in my grave. Well, black folks keep taking us under. Free at last, free at last. When will my niggas be free at last?
I can't leave.
Who you call?
Kiki. You gonna slap me?
Even just calling him a woman's name.
Slap me.
What's wrong with you, nigga?
Beat me up.
I don't want to fuck you up, kiddo. Play with me, nigga.
Get the pictures.
What the fuck wrong with you?
Oh my God.
I'm not.
Oh my
Nigga,
God.
I'm about to slap this nigga,
Slap
cuz.
Oh
Don't play with me, nigga. On the dead homies, nigga. I'll fuck you up, nigga. Don't play with me, no Kiki Palmer, nigga. I'll break your fucking jaw on you. What's wrong with you, nigga?
All the
Get out of my house!
I don't know you.
Face of a first American. Her reconstruction is confirmed by measurements Walter Nevis has taken of all his skulls.
The first reaction was not to believe in it. But as the results, repeated so many times, and the result is exactly the same thing. They're very similar to nowadays Aborigines and Africans, and no similarity at all with Mongoloids in Asia or with American Indians.
My old man was a fly motherfucker.
Been waiting on this my whole life.
God runs the world. Then under that, you got 1,000-year-old family, Medici. Under that, you have the Vatican, Pope. Under that, you have the financial groups that control all your shit. BlackRock, Vanguard. After that, you have Putin, you have Trump, you have all this shit. And after that, you got what all this shit is, entertainment, Hollywood.
Entertainment, mind control.
Run that back, run it in schools.
He just broke it down.
8 billion people are being controlled by 100 families.
Who are these families?
These are the elite oligarchs that control the planet. They literally run us. They tell us what to do, hear, see, smell, taste, touch, feel, where we can go, where we can't go. They're running us. The governments are put in place to work for the people, but they got it flipped and they got us working for them.
Right.
And telling us what they're going to do to us if we don't listen to them. That's the opposite of what it's supposed to be. The reason why the world it is today, or why we have this boot on our neck, it's because of us. We're the problem. They're sharks. A shark smells blood, a shark attacks.
Right.
A shark is going to be a shark. How come we as 8 billion people haven't stopped falling for these divide and conquer tactics and stopped fighting each other over the scraps and realize who the real enemy is? While we're fighting each other, they're just cutting up the pie and laughing at us. Left wing, right wing, all the same bird. There's no such thing as a Democrat or Republican. The only thing that does exist, like I say, is a group of elite oligarchs that torture men, women, and children worldwide. That exists. Democrat, Republican doesn't exist.
It was Mother's Day, 1985.
The day Philadelphia police dropped a bomb on 3 blocks of this community. Home to a group of counterculture activists known as the MOVE organization.
You saw the smoke. It was black, and you could see like ashes floating around.
The blocks were decimated, 61 homes destroyed, and 11 people killed, 5 of them children.
This is a really hard thing for me to talk about because I feel like I am reliving 1985.
Nearly 4 decades later, the parents of those young victims learned their nightmare had not ended.
Y'all got to understand, we are in pain. We're not weak.
Jesus wasn't a Christian, okay? Jesus was not a Christian. Christianity didn't exist until Jesus was long gone and dead.
The name Jesus,
yes,
only appears on our alphabet as of 500 years ago. So
and
the question,
way before
1,500 years prior to that. So the question is, if on the Hebrew charts and on hieroglyphics and on Italian writings and Greek writings, J is not there, what is the agenda of the Catholic system converting from Yeshua to Joshua? And as if that is not enough, the first rule of academic excellence in terms of translations of scripture, you don't translate a name. You don't translate a name. It's a crime. Mount Carmel remains Mount Carmel.
Hence slavery was the biggest crime, to take away people's names.
Moses remains Moses.
Right.
You don't translate a name. So if you teach me as an academician and say, this is the rule that you must follow,
right,
then how come when I get on Yeshua, the name is translated to Jesus and it's non-consequential?
Do you think there's an agenda to dilute the true scriptures of what the Bible's supposed to be? Was there an agenda to even minimize African significance in the Bible?
If we can...
Messiah is Yahusha. Check this out. So, the original language of creation, the language that the Most High Yahuwah used to create the earth, that he spoke, is ancient Hebrew. There's also...
Constantine. Now, one of the things that you got to study when you go back is history, especially about the Holy Land and the empires that were here. In 325 AD, Constantine commissioned his mother, Queen Helena, to build this church. Why? Because many people were believing in the Son of God called Jesus. Did you hear me? Constantine was the high priest of what religion? Sol Invictus is the name of the god. Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was people that worship the sun. That's why on December the 25th, which is near the winter solstice, that's where you have what? The shortest day. And then after that, your days begin to elongate. But that was meaning the sun was getting stronger. The S-U-N. So December 25th was chosen by heathens as the birthday of the sun god, S-O-N, son of God, but it was really the birthday of the S-U-N, son. Are we clear? So December 25th ain't had nothing to do with the birth of Yeshua. Are we clear? December the 25th has already been celebrated by atheists. Because now, the reason why I'm calling them an atheist because they didn't believe in Yahuwah. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they made it a day called Christmas, right? And on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, right, according to them, that's when they go to church. But we see that was the day of what? The sun. They actually worship the sun. All Christians in the beginning were sun worshipers. Did you know that? Every one of them. But unbeknownst of themselves, remember, when Yeshua was teaching 2,000 years ago, the entire Roman Empire were pagans. Was that not so? So that how did Yeshua, being a Hebrew, mother of Joseph and Mary, all of a sudden, Constantine said, let's convert the entire empire to Christians. But they had to do some compromise. They had to establish Sunday as the day that they worship the sun. See, Greeks and Romans, they didn't care how many gods you had. They had a pantheon of gods. Do you hear me? So another god, Yah, hey, yeah, you can believe in Yah, but we're going to believe in everybody else. Are we clear?
You ain't got a front, nigga, be yourself. Ooh. La 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 la.
You know, one of the lines that has become clear to me in Kendrick Lamar's performance last night.
You're almost there. Don't mess this.
Is 40 acres and a mule. And that line is particularly potent for many Black Americans. And it happens to be a line that I remember from my education growing up in grade school in the Bronx. And I vaguely remember what it was about. It was something that was promised enslaved people. I can't remember whether I was told it was before or after emancipation, but it had to do with the Civil War. And I've since had my memory refreshed, and it was something that the federal government promised enslaved people that they would get, and it would help them get a head start. But as with many promises given to Native Americans, they didn't come through. Oh no! And I never really equated 40 acres and a mule because it was not something that really ever touched my life. But in thinking about it this morning, oh no! I never really equated it with something else that was very important to American life, which was the Homestead Act. Now, if you don't recall the Homestead Act, it's a cultural divide. I'm gonna get it on the floor. For some reason, there's a lot of American history that was that really stayed with me, and the Homestead Act was an act that the federal government felt was extremely important because they wanted to populate the Midwestern part of our country, the prairie. And so they offered 160 acres free and clear to people who would farm the land, ranch the land. I guess it was really only good for farming, but they would give free and clear 160 acres to people, and they had mapped out a huge swath of prairie land. Oh no! It's a cultural divide. And it was white people who took that land, and that's how a lot of our Midwest cities came into being. They tried to rig the game, but and they didn't rescind that promise. They gave 160 acres to people free and clear, and all they had to do was stake it out. And this may be apocryphal, but I seem to remember in class hearing how there was a date and they had people lining up and they set off a bell and you could just go and stake out your plot of land and it was yours and you could farm it. And that was the beginning of generational wealth for a lot of white people. A lot of these people came from Germany and Middle European countries, and they got a stake in this country. And here we have enslaved people who were brought over against their will and finally released from bondage and promised for their servitude, they would be given 40 acres and a mule.
40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music.
And a mule. And they got nothing. And they had to start from scratch.
I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music.
I need you to rain down your presence on me, on me. Yeah. From the crown of my head to the sole of my feet, Lord.
You're almost there.
Currently, literally underwater. Hey, wait.
Don't mess this.
Generational wealth is one of the many things that is destroyed. Cut a dang check. Oh no.
These people had an established civilization that not only rivaled that of Egypt in its height, but is also much older. In fact, at the 1996 14th session of the United Nations Summer Conference, these people were recorded as the oldest indigenous people on Earth. The first Americans, the Washita de Dugdamalja. Although it is known by archaeologists, historians, and anthropologists that an old and ancient people occupied this land before the American Indian, up until recently, not much effort has been made to educate the general public of this fact. The Washita are the dark-skinned original inhabitants of North and South America. They have been referred to as the pre-Columbian civilizations, the prehistoric mound builders, the diggers, and the ancient ones. Certified legal documents of colonial and Spanish and French explorers identified the Washita as the ancient occupants of America and are responsible for building the highly advanced geometric earthworks and sacred burial mounds found all over this continent. Modern science teaches that all the continents on the earth were once connected in one piece of land. They call it Pangea. Washita history actually says the same thing as do the scriptures. The Washita, the indigenous people of this land that we now call America, were on this land when it was connected in one piece. When this land was connected to what is now called Africa, the Washita were on this land that we call America. So the Washita do not come from anywhere. We did not come to America from someplace else. We were already here. We have always been here. Back to the time when scientists called the land Pangea, when it was one piece. So we have always been on this land.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Look at this. This is an ancient Olmec. But what do you see down there? You see the fist? The so-called black power fist? This is how long we've been doing this. Hair. Look what you see. A pick. We pick our hair for the fro. Before we grow locks, we gotta pick our hair. Look what you see here. A fro pick. This is how long we've been doing this. So you don't think a lot of Mexican officials know about this? You don't think a lot of Mexican officials seen all of these things? Why they don't release it? Why they don't show it to the world? Why they don't tell the truth? Because they all went to school, and that school called the school of re-educating. That's the school of identity theft. The school of the re-education pretty much destroy all evidence to prove that the people that we all hate today, that's actually their land. They were the one that built civilization. So you don't think they've seen this? This is not in Africa. This is here in Mexico, in America. Matter of fact, it predates everybody that so-called called themselves native today. That shit predates everything, anything they ever had. Now for some of these so-called native today that's be thumping hard, show me an ancient artifact of you that predate these artifacts. You couldn't find any. You couldn't. Because they bring you here to replace us. Oh, you don't believe me? What do you think this migrant crisis that's happening in America right now, what do you think this migrant crisis is all about? You think they stupid? They've pressed the reset button. Why? Because Americans, not any black American, waking up. Where you think these migrants going? They're going straight to the black neighborhood. They ain't going to go to the white neighborhood. They're replacing you because you're getting too smart. That's what they did to us when they came here. They import people from the Trans-Pacific slave trade to replace us. That's why they give us a false ideology and false identity. It's all part of the game. Okay?
So the myth that the city of Miami is just this empty party city devoid of all history and cultural significance continues to be debunked each and every single day. The story I'm about to tell you guys is as Miami as it gets. Think of your average day in Brickell. A developer is trying to build a residential tower complex for luxury condos. However, the construction of this complex has been halted for about 1.5 years because teams of archaeologists have made amazing finds on the digging site. And what they have found are thousands of fragmentary prehistoric tools and artifacts, rare and well-preserved animal and plant remnants, vestiges of ancient structures and human remains. Independent scientists say that many of the findings on this site are 7,000 years old. 7,000 years old. Like this quote says, you're going back to the time of the emergence of the first cities in Mesopotamia, which are the first cities or the first civilizations of humans in the world's history. Also older than the Roman Empire, and even older than the pyramids of Giza. The pyramids in Egypt, you guys, are 5,000 years old approximately. These artifacts found in Brickell, in the mouth of the Miami River, are 2,000 years older than that. Now, in true Miami fashion, this is unfortunately the first time I am hearing of this discovery, despite the fact that it was made 1.5 years ago. And many critics say they believe the developers and the city have attempted to downplay the discoveries to avoid the kind of public uproar and litigation that led to the preservation of the Miami Circle from condominium development in 1999, as well as another Tequesta Circle and other antiquities across the river at the Met Square development in 2014. Pestel, one of the archaeologists on the site, says right now we have a developer who has every interest in the world to have the archaeology go away as soon as possible. But unfortunately, instead of the city making a conscious effort to preserve this discovery, it has allowed the developer to move forward with preparations for construction on half the parcel where archaeology has been completed, with no apparent effort to ask or require the developer to modify designs to accommodate some degree of preservation of the ground to preserve this discovery. In my very humble opinion, I would expect the discovery of artifacts and an archaeological site that dates back 7,000 years would be more important than allowing for a developer to build another luxury condo building that has no need to be there in the first place. Some experts were even saying that this site could be designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a global site of importance of the civilizations that came before us. Pero quien hace entender the city commissioners that this is important? Let me know what you guys think.
History is a lie. Who were the first victims of the transatlantic slave trade? From colonization and slavery in Central America. Quote, the demand for labor in the early Spanish settlements of Hispaniola, Cuba, Panama, and Peru resulted in a large-scale Indian slave trade in Central America in the second quarter of the 16th century. Indeed, the first colonial economy of the region was based on slave trading. This odious commerce remained the principal colonial economic activity until the decline in population reduced the supply. This is the original document kept at Harvard University, describing the name and appearance of the Jacobite POWs. In a previous video, we read the transcript and saw that only about 10 to 15% were described as quote-unquote white people, while the vast majority were dark-skinned. From the World's Columbian Exposition at Chicago, published by order of the Venezuelan government, quote, in 1535, the king again decreed that the Caribs should be reduced to bondage. They were to be considered as slaves, used as such, and marked. The zone of the pearl fisheries was extending, and fresh Spanish and Italian adventures were to prey on the wealth extracted from the mollusca. Kubugua was on the wane. Its pearl deposits were disappearing because the Indians, urged by the insatiable cupidity of the conquistadores, had ended by extirpating them. Here is the heart-rending narrative of Bartolomé de las Casas. Hardly had the Indian pearl fishermen issued from the water with a supply of oysters when their masters forced them to dive again without allowing them time to recruit their strength and draw breath. If through sheer necessity the Indian remained above water a few minutes, the master's whip obliged him to dive again. They were fed on the remains of oysters. Occasionally they got some cassave bread, but they never received any wine or strengthening liquor to restore their weakened bodies, which had become covered with scales through the continual contact of salt water. At night, these poor creatures were confined in stocks and loaded with chains so as to preclude any possibility of escape. At dawn, their dreary round of work again began. Many disappeared devoured by sharks. Others would faint away or vomit blood. Most of them died of hunger, cruel treatment, and despair. This was the state of things in Cubagua when Benzoni visited the island in 1542. The Italian sailor thus speaks of this horrible traffic of the first Venezuelan colonists. During our stay in Cubagua, Captain Pedro de Calice arrived with more than 400 slaves he had collected. All these unfortunate beings were almost fainting, either from want of nourishment, excessive labor, and fatigue, or from the anguish entailed by separation from country, parents, and children. If some of them, overwhelmed with suffering, were unable to follow the others, the Spaniards, not wishing to leave any behind for fear of some conspiracy, urged them forward with the whip, till some would expire under the blows. It was really pitiful to look upon these wretched creatures, naked, worn out, maimed, hungry, infirm, or crippled. Sorrowing mothers, mourning their misfortunes, were accompanied by 2 or 3 children. All were bound with ropes or chains round the neck and arms. This is the last first-hand account we have the stomach for at the moment. From what we read, Central American Indian slaves were sold, traded, and resold all over America in the Caribbean colonies, even to the North American British and French colonies. Like and share for more hidden history. And that's why we say,
since European colonists began settling in the land that would later become the United States of America, many artifacts have been discovered which suggest that one of the ancient Native American mound builder civilizations, which the U.S. calls Hopewell, are descendants of Hebrew people who migrated to ancient North America during the 500s BC, which is approximately the earliest estimated dates of the Hopewell mound builders in Florida, Tennessee, and Iowa. Yet there have been many people in the United States who insist that every single one of these artifacts are fake. My personal opinion is because it opposes the idea that nobody sailed to America before Christopher Columbus. But there's at least one extremely large piece of evidence carved right into the landscape near Fayetteville, Ohio, that can't be denied as solid evidence of Hebrew people in ancient North America. And you can see it right on Google Earth. But before we get into that, just a brief introduction. The Hopewell mound builders built hundreds of thousands of structures out of various types of earth materials. These structures included burial mounds, animal effigy mounds, forts, temples, and advanced geometric structures with lunar and solar alignments. Many of these structures have been leveled down and destroyed as the United States expanded west and built itself right over them, but some still exist today. Early U.S. settlers would create detailed survey drawings of some of these structures. There are a few good books which were published by the Smithsonian in the mid-1800s that show detailed survey drawings from the Ohio and New York areas. They're called Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, Aboriginal Monuments of New York, and Antiquities of New York. But there was a one-of-a-kind mound builder structure that was unlike all the rest, at least as far as I know. In 1823, Major Isaac Roberdeau of the United States Army Corps of Engineers created this survey drawing of a massive earth structure just southwest of present-day Fayetteville, Ohio. Notice the Hebrew oil lamp. Notice the 9-candle menorah. And notice other ancient and sacred symbols such as the compass and the square. Another drawing of this structure is included in one of the Smithsonian books I mentioned earlier, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley. And still, there are some who insist that this survey drawing was fake and that the structure never even existed. Unfortunately, the United States Army Corps of Engineers completely destroyed this structure in the early 1900s and leveled it into flat ground. But why? Was it an intentional attempt to erase this odd Hebrew structure from American history? Or was it simply out of carelessness and lack of respect for ancient American antiquities? See it right on Google Earth. Here's a satellite image of the area where the structure was said to have been located. It's just southwest of Fayetteville, Ohio, where the 131 and the 50 intersect. And it's the Hebrew letter Shin, or some of you may be saying, wait, but that's not on the survey drawing. And you're right. So I wonder if that's why they missed it. In 1823, that whole area was probably covered with thick forest, and who knows for how long after that. Survey drawings of other mound builder structures, oftentimes you'll see that they dug ditches and built the walls of earth right alongside the ditches. Now, I can't tell from the 1823 survey if there were ditches alongside its walls or not, but if there weren't any, then it's likely that the dirt came from those ditches that include the Hebrew letter. But either way, that letter is there, and it's huge. Hebrew people were here in ancient North America. In closing, among the many Hebrew-related artifacts here in the U.S., there was one that was dug out of a hill in 1826 near Palmyra, New York. It was an ancient record engraved on thin metal plates, which the mound builders also knew how to make. This record tells about a small group of Hebrew people who left Jerusalem in 600 BC, shortly before the Babylonians destroyed the city. This small group of Hebrews sailed to ancient America. Their record was printed into the English language in 1830, and it's called the Book of Mormon. Mormon is the name of one of the last guys who wrote in the record in 385 AD after his people were slaughtered in a great war that lasted decades and culminated in what is now the state of New York. Mormon's son, Moroni, was the last guy who wrote in the record in 421 AD. The archaeologic record of the Hopewell Mound Builders strongly suggests that their civilization did end in New York around 400 AD. And there are Native Americans who will tell you that the mound builder civilization was mostly killed off in New York, but that some of them escaped southward to Kentucky, where they were finally destroyed. And the Book of Mormon also mentions this, that after the last great battle in New York, there were a few who escaped to the south, but were finally killed as well. So this ancient metal record that the Book of Mormon came from was originally written in a reformed Egyptian language. Some of the characters on the record are similar to the characters in the written language of the Algonquin Micmac Native Americans, whose written language is a form of Egyptian called Hieratic Egyptian. And they had this language before the European settlers arrived. So how did the Micmacs have Hieratic Egyptian as their language? My opinion is that the language was handed down through the generations from the ancient Hebrews who came to North America 2,600 years ago, who knew how to speak, read, and write both the Hebrew and Egyptian languages. The Book of Mormon tells about this ancient Hebrew people and how some of them also believed in Jesus Christ as the Son of God.
Why do white people pay so much attention to black people if they don't like them? You would think if you didn't like something, why would you be paying attention to it? I don't pay attention to things I don't like.
What's the answer?
The answer is the liar knows what lie he told. You see what I'm saying? So even if I made it deceitful and I made you think that the answer is over here, but the answer is really over here, I'm still going to be looking over here. Me, the one that tricked, because I know this is the right answer. Black people have lost their identity, but our oppressors have not lost our identity. That's just why they chopped those noses off of the Pharaoh and the Sphinx in Egypt in the first place, is because without this nose, we can tell you this is whoever it is. But with that nigga nose, it can only be niggas. Why would somebody vandalize a whole face and only vandalize one part? Nobody wanted to knock an eye off or take an ear off or no chins missing. No, just the nose.
Most people don't know, but Mayans are actually related to East African and Shemitic peoples. They clearly depicted themselves as black, but I'm going to use a little bit more evidence to prove this. For those who are wondering, this is what the ancient Shemites most likely look like. These are Elamites. Elam was a son of Shem, and they depicted themselves as well as black with kinky curly hair. Now in the Book of Jubilees, chapter 8, Azurad, the daughter of Nimrod was the descendant of Cush, East Africa. And the daughter of Nimrod married to Eber, and Eber had Peleg and Joktan. Now Cush is a term synonymous of East Africa, and East Africans are diverse in their looks, but they all have Negroid features typically. Now Joktan, the son of Eber, his name is actually pronounced Yokatan because there is no J in the Hebrew language. That's where I believe the word Yucatan comes from. Yucatan and Yokatan is the same thing. O, I, and U in the Hebrew language is symbolized by the same character. They just used the Nikud system to pronounce the vowel different. Now meet the Lacedons, a tribe in the Yucatan Peninsula which has maintained the Mayan customs fairly well over the centuries. And notice they're wearing these flowing white long robes. They let their hair grow really long, and they marry multiple wives like they do in the East. Amongst the Abrahamic religions, long white robes is actually really common. You'll find this amongst the Jews. Notice the Ethiopian Jews wearing their long white robes. These are black Arabs wearing flowing white robes. And many know, if you ever read the Bible, that Abraham and his descendants always married multiple wives. It's just something that they did. Now in Leviticus 19 verse 27, it says that the priests amongst the Israelites, they're not allowed to cut their hair in any shape, form, or fashion, which the Lacedones, they practice. Rastafarians practice this because they know that they're from the tribe of Judah. Look at the lion necklace this elder is wearing. Notice that the Brahmin priests don't cut their hair as well. I believe that Abraham was born into the Brahmin caste, and that is why he was a priest, because the Brahmin caste is the highest class in the caste system. And notice the water pot that this Brahmin priest is holding. Now on my top left, you'll notice an Olmec holding that same bag. The Olmecs are related to the Mayans, and the Olmecs also have Negroid features. And on the right, you'll see a Sumerian god holding this bag, which relates back to the East. Tell me you guys don't think if I put on that helmet that I would look like an Olmec.
But later on, we became known by other names than that. And one of them, of course, is Navajo. The word Navajo actually was a name that was originally given to us by the people that we call Anasazi. And originally, from their language, it was pronounced Anabejo. And our people did trade with the Anasazi people. Our people came from the east across the great rivers, and as they came across, they ended up into what is present-day southern Colorado. And as they talk about in the traditional teaching, they say there were already people here.
A wandering band of Navajo hunters came to this place. It was deserted and in ruins, just as it is today. The Navajos had no idea who the builders were, so they simply called them Anasazi, which in Navajo means the ancient ones.
The Navajo called the Anasazi the ancient outsiders because they done things different than Native American tribes. They also employed a wide variety of means to grow high-yield crops in areas with low rainfall. Pottery found in the Anasazi Cliff Palace have ancient mound builder symbols all over them. Also, there are murals on the wall with 3 pyramids that symbolizes Orion's belt. This is the Cliff Palace made by the ancient ones, the Anasazi. And there's also a sun temple there. We know the truth now.
State's stressing, brother. I'm getting on a plane and I'm out. Oh, oh. Brazil, Dominican Republic, and Santo Domingo like fuck it. Oh, oh. Bitches in Japan, digging a brother. Lied to the hoes, told them I was Usher. Germany, London, France, coffee shops in Amsterdam. Yeah, so I say, oh how I love my Haitian babe. Do you feel me? Living life, no doubt. Probably got kids I don't know about. Oh.
This is an Olmec head from Mexico. This Olmec head has some type of cuneiform language all over it. This is the Auckland pillar in Canada with that same cuneiform language on the pillar. But check this out. These are Olmec heads found in Alberta, Canada that they hide from us. The Olmecs were all over North America, Central America, and South America. Those Olmec heads in Canada have been carbon dated at 24,000 years old. So ask yourself, who made cuneiform? Why are there Olmec heads in Canada? And also, in that same area, these indigenous stone-carved heads was found on the beach in Victoria, Canada. We know the truth now.
Greetings, everyone. This is a long journal entry, so stay tuned for all the details. Monday, November 12th. Yesterday, I thought it was a good idea to take some of the people from the river to convey to them your majesties so that they may learn our language and tell us what there is in their country, and learn our customs and matters of the faith and interpret for our people when they return. For I can see from our own observations that these people have no religion, nor are they adulterers. They are gentle and do not know the meaning of evil, nor killing, nor taking prisoners. They have no weapons and are so timid that one of my men can frighten away 100 of them, just as a joke. They are ready to believe. They acknowledge that there is a God in heaven and are convinced that there is where we have come from. They are quick to recite any prayer we tell them to say and to make the sign of the cross. Crosses. Your Majesty should therefore determine to convert them to Christianity, for I believe that once this is begun, a host of peoples will soon be converted to our holy faith, and great dominions and their wealth and all their peoples will be won for Spain. For there is no doubt that these lands hold enormous quantities of gold. On the river Mares, which I left last night, there is certainly a great amount of mastic, and it could be increased if more were wanted. For these trees take easily if replanted, and there are plenty of them. One could also obtain great quantities of cotton, which I think could be very well be sold here rather than taking it to Spain in the cities of the Great Khan. A canoe came alongside us yesterday with 6 young men. 5 of them came aboard, and I ordered them to be seized and have brought them away with me. Thief. I then sent men to a house on the west side of the river, and they brought back 7 females, some young and some adult. I did this because men behave better in Spain when they have women of their own land with them than when they are deprived of them. Men have often been taken from Guinea to Portugal to learn the language and given good treatment and gifts, and when they were taken back with a view to employing them in their own country, they went ashore and were never seen
by sight. Some of the things the Lord is going to bless you with, beloved, is going to be because you've been an obedient servant. It may not make any sense.
These are the real mound builders. You see the skull and bones? The skull and bones represents power and strength, stolen by secret societies of America and praised in necromancy, voodoo, or black magic. This is why skull and bones are praised or used in all of a sudden having crisis in identity. At the very moment, we also talked about what? Afrocentrism and African what? Centeredness. So right at this moment, when we are beginning to coalesce and to develop a concept of African identity and Afrocentrism, we are all now suddenly in a what? Identity crisis. Is the identity crisis really there? Or is what going on an attempt to do what? Create an identity crisis. Because these people are well aware of what a full and wholesome identity will do to them. And they are aware that an African-centered identity represents the end of white power and of white oppression.
Dedicated to Frank. I love you, Frank. Come back home. You know Shirley and Coochie ain't better than mine. Neither is them sour ass greens. Loving you.
No, no, oh, simply. This big boy is pimping. When it's cold outside, I can keep you warm. When it's cold outside, let a big brother keep you